Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Lodestar's Lending Leaders. Our guest, return guest, friend of the pod, season one guest, Kevin Peranio, Chief Lending Officer at PRMG, leading independent mortgage banker, or independent mortgage company, I should say. Thanks again for being back, Kevin. I'm very excited to talk about all things in the industry from kind of your, Mount Everest size view of what's going on right now.
Well, it's always good to be with you, Jim, and the good people over there at Lodestar. Mount Everest, that's kind of you. I kind of feel like maybe Mount McKinley. We'll just keep it short and local.
Fair enough. There you go. Tallest in the United States, so that makes sense. I'll take it. I know we spoke last April in the middle of a historic refi boom, right? Things are a little bit different now. I know from knowing you and knowing a lot of what you're putting out content wise that you're probably more bullish than most on the market right now, but you see, Fannie Mae saying a 33% dip year over year volume. How can't you get nervous? How do you kind of rectify, those, concerns that people have, layoffs that are happening versus kind of your overall outlook?
Well, I think it's, coincidentally really important that you earmarked April when we spoke, because for us, that was our peak month of refi business, especially boosted in our correspondent channel. So we have three channels. So we're wholesale, retail, and correspondent. And our correspondent, it's mostly non-delegated. We do a little bit of delegated as well. March and April were the biggest months, finishing up all the Q1 fundings and purchases for our correspondent channel. And for us, that was in essence the end of the refi boom. And ever since May, we noticed purchase business ticking up and refi business going down, even despite the rates just this past fall actually being the low point in rates. So, there's some burnout. It'd been over a year, of actual bars being hit on. Some of the challenges you talk about, I think, really apply to really refi heavy shops. Right. They gear their manufacturing process, their systems, their pitch, their marketing, their sales team, especially the call centers and the consumer direct centers, they get geared towards that. That's when they shine. And, but it's back to blocking and tackling. And so since May for us, we've had many great months. But we did notice, especially in December, rates had crept up very quickly, and it's seasonally not a strong month in a normal market. Right. And the reason why I'm bullish is even though it's a normal market, the projections are for $2.6 trillion. Yeah. I mean, if we didn't have what we had in 20 and 21, people would be going crazy over 2.6 trillion in a year. I mean, it might be like the fourth or fifth best year ever for our industry. And you've got larger loan amounts for both Fannie, Freddie, VA, FHA. All the county loan limits are raised, high balances raised. There's just, you can do less units, but your dollar amount per unit will be much higher, even on purchase business. And so we saw locks down, trending down a little bit in December. And that's a seasonal thing that in a normal market, that's a seasonal thing you see. So people aren't out hunting houses when it's Hanukkah or Christmas or Kwanzaa or New Year's. And it's cold for most of the United States. So the New Year starts, not to mention there was a little bit of an Omicron variant going on, right? So
just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, everyone has to deal with it in their own way. And but I saw, I think it was Richmond Fed Chair. I think his name is Barkin, Barkin, something like that. He was talking earlier today. I saw some clips, and he said that during the Omicron variant, there were 12 million people that were either out of work, refusing to look for work, taking care of someone else, or just staying at home for fear of Omicron. I mean, 12 million people are, 150 million workforce is a big deal in an already tight labor market. Right. It's very tight if you're trying to hire outside of the mortgage business. So again, all these factors kind of coming together. I personally think January's fundings will be the low point of the year. We've already seen, cases down, hospitalizations down, deaths down from Omicron. People are coming out. Every day is getting brighter and longer. warmer weather is around the corner, even though, there's just a bomb cyclone, up northeast. But, we're such a big country. We're such a vast, abundant country with so many different areas that we're seeing locks pick up. We're seeing our purchase money fundings for the month of January will likely be the largest January we've had on record for purchase money, outside of a refi boom, the boom. So we're very bullish going forward. And I think January will be the low point of the year for us. The economy is still very strong fundamentally. And these next 6 months of the year are seasonally very strong for purchase money. And even though there's an undersupply, an overwhelming undersupply of housing out there, it doesn't mean there's not a ton of transactions going on and a ton of business and a ton of demand. So it's just a very favorable position for companies that are deeply rooted in their communities, serving originators deeply rooted in their communities, and going after purchase business like they always have. So we feel like we're in a good spot, and we're ready to rock.
I know from our end, we saw we're primarily around kind of mortgage disclosures. So the beginning of that process, we saw a 20% month over month increase from December into this January. So, definitely, and that's very typical and very seasonal. December is always the lowest in terms of the volume that we see. So definitely makes sense. You said one thing, I think the perspective is important, that we're still looking at, historically a really good market. You had mentioned in the past when we last spoke that typically mortgage companies build their capacity based off, the 3.5 billion, maybe 4 billion market that they couldn't quite handle a year or two ago, right? They build capacity, market slows down, price war. Is that still what you're seeing in the market as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. And every single time that happens, what I notice is true independent mortgage bankers, privately owned companies. Like there's only 4 of us that own this company: Paul and Robert, Paul Rozo, Robert Holiday founded our company, and then myself and then Gary Malice. We're the 4 partners. We are not beholden to our stock price every quarter or every month, right? Or our public filing. We're not beholden to a hedge fund or an equity firm or wherever all these big companies get their money. And we aren't beholden to one model, only one channel, or only heavy refi. We're diversified. We're a 3-channel lender that's privately owned. It's well capitalized. It's been in business for over 20 years. So, we don't have to go do mass layoffs. We can hold our ground. So 4 guys that own the company, like we're going to nickel and dime all of our, employees and put them out on the street, and also part of that setup, by the way, for us being able to hold our ground and hold our operations employees and not go through layoffs is that when things were going crazy and everyone was building up their stuff, we weren't paying crazy guarantees. We held our ground and said, what? I don't want to hire someone for a high price just to fire them in a year or two.
Right.
Think about that. We would rather do less volume and make less money as 4 individual owners to not have to fire our operations employees that we hired in the moment to make more money, which is what so many other companies do. And so again, all that downsizing and shrinking, you're going to miss us with that because that's not how we roll. And we're okay with slow, controlled growth. Yeah, we're okay with not making as much as we could have, and foregoing some pain. I mean, when you see companies lay off 50 or more employees, I mean, that is painful. I mean, it's absolutely painful. And so I'm reading the headlines and I see it going on out there. 100 here, 100 there, 40 there, 900 there. The guys with Better Mortgage who are so much smarter than everybody else. 900 people, right? And so I know they're kind of a punching bag because they're I mean, look, I'm sure there's absolutely fantastic people that work there and they would defend their turf and everything. But a 900 person layoff is absolutely unacceptable. I mean, that is completely mismanaging your company and putting zero value in your people. To be that overweight means you literally are inexperienced and you set yourself up to have to fire 900 people on a Zoom call, by the way, which is absolutely stupid.
I mean, I've seen on a much smaller scale growing up in a family-owned title company going on year 20 almost 30 now, right? They've gone from 96 people to 16 and anywhere in between, right? And all of those and dealing with that in the market. And I think there's a huge kind of personal toll that happens when you do that. Because one, you can't really train people. It's tough to train people when you have that type of turnover and you lose folks with that knowledge. You effectively have survivor guilt for the folks who are staying. And then not to mention what it does for your profitability. So I know that slow, controlled growth is really important. And I wish people were to do that more. I think so many companies, especially in the industry, kind of manage themselves like they're on a run at a craps table, right? We're winning. Let's put more money on the table, more money on the table, more money on the table. Craps come, all that money goes off. And now you're losing and you're just pouring more money in until you get to that next hot streak, right? That's when you only rely on maybe one market, primarily the refi market.
Yeah, and I saw a great clip yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, and he was basically saying the difference between mercenaries and missionaries, and he classified these companies that ramp up very quick, either to go public or to raise money or to have a series round, and then they want to exit. So some individuals can make a rip, and I guess good for that individual, bad for the 900 people that got laid off. Right? That's a mercenary. Right. You're not, to quote, Simon Sinek, you're playing the infinite game versus the not infinite game. We're missionaries. So Bezos would classify PRMG or most independent mortgage bankers as missionaries. This is what we do. This is our living. This is our livelihood. These are our communities. This is our people. The people that work for us. This is our family. We're on a mission to serve our communities together with, our teammates in both ops and sales. That's a mission. And that is playing the infinite game. That is a different mindset. And so we're here for the long run.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so important. And you had mentioned, we talked last time about Fintechs, but I don't think we quite had the nuance of Fintechs who are actually mortgage lenders, right? Versus Fintechs like a SaaS company like Lodestar. They're, we're a vendor, we're a provider to the industry. And I think it's different, right? Because you can be a true technology company, but if you're a mortgage lender, sure, you're leveraging technology, but you're never really a technology company, right? And I think that's where probably some of these companies get in trouble. And you see that not only, with those fintech lenders, you see it with WeWork famously, right? You see it with Uber, like, yeah, you're a tech company, but you're just renting property at the end of the day. I don't know, your thoughts on that and those types of folks, thinking that they can kind of, outpace the rest of the industry.
So it's interesting. It really depends on, from a purely fintech company standpoint, whether it's a vendor partner or the fintech part of a lender. What is the strategy? Is it to serve the services side? So, like I like to classify between services, people, and tech people, right? Mm-hmm. And so, the technology sometimes is a fad, right? So, there are many valuable tech vendors that were in our industry 20 years ago that don't even exist because what they are doing is obsolete and it's no longer needed. Imagine, being, a mortgage, paper provider, document, shredding company, that got eradicated because now everything's paperless, right? Yeah. So that's the only example I can think of at the top of my head. But, so if a fintech company has an exit strategy, they're trying to gain up a book of business, maybe get people in annual recurring revenue, 12-month or longer contracts, in a software as a service, mortgage as a service, the SaaS models. And then maybe the goal is to sell or raise more capital and serve more. Right. From a lender perspective, especially if you're playing the infinite game, our two founders are 54 and 57. Yeah. And they're engaged every day. Even one on a Sunday was at the Rams game yesterday, watching them beat the 49ers, and he's texting about work, and he's like a diehard Rams fan. So, we're in it. Fintech people don't work on Sundays, unless of course you're a founder or something, maybe a lot of shares if that's what's inspiring you. And so they're not necessarily playing the infinite game. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, in their defense, their tech could be overrun by newer tech. Yeah. And so they kind of are forced to not play the infinite game. So what I always, gets me going is when these lenders try to cater to Wall Street and try and tout themselves as a fintech company and not a services company.
Right.
And, you get higher multiples for the value of your company on Wall Street or from, equity partners or takeout partners if you're tech versus a mortgage services person, which Wall Street hates us, by the way. They think we're only as good as the Fed lets us be. Fed raises the rate. We don't do as much volume. We don't grow. We don't make as much money. We're not valued as much. They cut the rates. We do more refis. We make more money. They like us for the moment.
I mean, and there are companies that run that way at the end of the day too, especially if you're really, doubling down on only one business and we're going to streamline the hell out of this from one office at one point in the country, right? So there are companies where I think that is true.
Yep. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, I think you bring up some good points, and you talked a little bit before about just getting back from the IMB show and talking with the independent bankers and the folks that are probably also playing the infinite game, and I think are in a position too, unlike other banking lenders and folks there where mortgages are all they do. Right. So they need to figure out a way to survive those markets. Mm-hmm. So what things are you seeing about how folks kind of, weather these storms and how to figure out they can get through a period like this, keeping their staff, dealing with the seasonality and just the year to year changes?
Yeah, I think, the show in Nashville, the Mortgage Banker Association puts on a few shows in the year. Mm-hmm. And the first one of the year is for independent mortgage bankers. So no banks.
Yep.
And so, our concerns are different. We're not as highly regulated, although we're pretty regulated. Yeah. But it's a different kind of regulation. We're more singularly focused on mortgage. Yeah. It's not like our 13th highest revenue stream as some of these banks. It's our only revenue stream. So, our focus is the infinite game. Our focus is what are some things that we can, work with each other, help each other, collaborate with, and then all uplift each other together and serve our communities together. And that's, that's why I like the IMB show in Nashville. Had great closed door session to end the show on, I guess it was Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And, we're just talking about margin compression. We're talking about the CFPB and what they're up to. What are people doing with their servicing portfolio, their MSR, mortgage servicing rights, their MSRs? Does anyone have a strategy there? And what's the market outlook? And the resources that the Mortgage Banker Association provides are fantastic. I mean, you got Bob Brooksmith, who's, the president CEO, basically running the chairman. He's the guy, he's in the meeting with us, together with Marina Stroud and, who's over all the data and analytics. And you've got, multiple people in there that, that serve at different capacities. So it's great to get all of us in a room together, plus all the networking and the conversations that sometimes just take on a different impact when it's face to face. And so, kudos to the MBA for having the guts to have an in-person show in Nashville, Tennessee. When quite honestly, some people are afraid of Omicron, and so, it's what it is. So, but it was a great show. A lot of good takeaways.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. And I think it's so important for, you would talk a lot about the idea of cooperation, right? So you're competing against other mortgage companies, but you have a lot more in common than you don't. And there's enough really space in the industry for everyone. So there's a lot more you can do to help each other and learn together than try to kind of feel like you have your own little silos, your own little secrets and things like that. Like we're all kind of doing the same things, pricing loans a similar way. Everyone has their niche a little bit. So, working together is going to help people a lot more than it's going to hurt people. And it's great to, hear folks that are actually embracing that strategy.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's having that abundance mindset, knowing that there's tons of business out there. We can all make a great living and support each other. It's like those little mini dog or mini pig races, you see like the corgi or the Shih Tzu or the pigs, some of them get out in front of the other, some kind of go the wrong direction, but, then they just, one will catch on to something like, oh my gosh, like, check out this company Capacity and this awesome like chatbot that I can use to automate my help desk, or check out FinLocker, with their consumer data empowered, or Matic Insurance, you get one of these little things. And someone gets out in front of it first, but then everyone's like, hey, what's that guy doing over there? And they try and catch up. Again, it's not rocket science. We all end up copying each other, in some form or another. Maybe someone gets an edge for a little bit here. Hey, good job. You run that race. We have another race tomorrow. So that's the mindset. And, unless someone's doing something truly revolutionary, and getting out in front of everybody, it really suits us all best if we have a collaborative mindset.
The last question I had for you, kind of going in line with collaboration and community, I saw that PRMG just won its 4th award as a top workplace. So congratulations on that.
Oh, sweet. I didn't even know that. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it was on Google told me, right? It was Inland Magazine, something like that. So, now trying to build a workplace and what it looked like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago is different than what it looks like in 2022. So what types of, things are you doing kind of intentionally now in this, more hybrid environment that we're in, to have that workplace as you're recruiting people, growing the business and trying to retain people?
We've been hybrid forever, basically. I mean, we hire people all over and let them work from home, especially on the operations side. We have some teams in some areas. Our corporate headquarters in Corona, we got some, office space. We prefer to be live, but it really wasn't a hard transition for us to send the remaining people in office home. I think there's 2 things. I mean, obviously, the vibe you get working here and the fact that you're respected as a human being and what you do, and if you're good, you're rewarded. But I also think our decentralized model is what's different. A lot of companies right now are like, all right, we got to consolidate, we got to shut down offices, we got to have less teams, but bigger teams, but centralized in one place so we can all watch it. We've never cared about that. That doesn't make any sense to us.
Right.
We're so decentralized. Give an example. We just hired. So we've had multiple fulfillment centers that are managed by individuals that are both over ops and sales. And we had one region that had 3 sales teams that kind of had their own pods. And we promoted those sales managers up to regional manager. So now they're over both ops and sales in those regions. So we just tripled down on our decentralized model. They don't have to beg for permission from someone from corporate to do something. They can make business decisions independently. So it's almost like they're running their own business because we're decentralized. So the way that helps people in a remote office environment is your immediate leadership is all of your leadership. I don't need to know 2,800 employees. I don't need to know all 2,800 of my employees because I trust the managers that we've hired and groomed over time. So for us, if you're an employee and you're working in Paducah, Kentucky, but your manager is in Dallas, there's nobody in between your manager in Dallas who's not our corporate manager and not in California or could be anywhere really. And if you and that person bond and you like your leader and you feel like you have an advocate at this company and you're learning and you're progressing, then the company serves you. And so it's just about trusting your people in a decentralized model.
Right. And I think it's important that you're not only decentralizing how people can work or where they're working from, but the leadership is also decentralized too, which I'm sure, helps with the diversification, helps with the speed of decisions, and the ability to do that. But, it's not always easy to give up control. So I can definitely understand, the forces at play there.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, great. I mean, it was great having you on. You're always so generous with your time. Is there anything else we missed or anything you want to touch on?
No, I just I think I'll just share maybe, a mindset thing that I heard at the MBA for the opening session. After Bob Brooksmith opened on Tuesday morning at 8:45 in Nashville, which I made it, he had Marcus Buckingham, who's an author, mindset kind of guy. And he said something very interesting that stuck out for me that was new. He said, a lot of people, because we're looking at what was working, what wasn't working last year, and now we're trying to retool and get better this year. He said most people look at their failures and try to invert it. So they just okay,
eliminate mistakes.
Let's invert it. But what he's saying is that doesn't always work. If you're trying to get good at a certain task, study excellence. Study those who are excellent at it. Study excellence, and then incorporate that excellence into what you do. That's how you get better. And I thought that was a very interesting way to position improvement, self-improvement and mindset going forward. It just stuck out with me. So I'm going to say it next week. We have our sales rallies for our wholesale correspondent channel next week at the 9th, February 9th. And then on the 10th of February, our retail channel at the Balboa Bay Resort here in Newport Beach. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to use that line and try and get people fired up and get cracking for spring purchase season and make 22 a kick-ass year.
Let's do it. Well, speaking of studying excellence, I love to follow all your content and everything you're doing. So I really appreciate your time. I always learn something talking to you. Thanks so much, Kevin.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it.